Welcome to Random Dialogue. Stand up and speak for yourself, #21. And we're here now joined with Phil, Val and Nick. And we'll go around and just introduce where we are and perhaps what we're going to speak about this evening for our viewer who's tuned in. Hello, viewer who's tuned in. And if you're watching now or later, please say hi in the chat and introduce yourselves too. And we'd love you to engage with us. So, Phil, do you have a theme for do you know what you're going to talk about?
Yes, I'm going to talk about golf.
And what in particular?
I know that's very exciting. And
Can't wait.
You can't wait to hear. You're just desperate to hear what I've got to say.
Okay.
You should be.
Okay. Well, we'll just leave it at that then. If it's that exciting.
By the way, watching, I could say that I am Phil Shepherd,
yes.
And I live in Ashstead in Surrey, and I do multifarious things with my life, which I can tell you more about if you want to know.
Thank you. Maybe you could even define multifarious at some point as well.
Sure.
Sell it.
Don't tell me.
Val, hello and welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, here I am in deepest, darkest Wales. It is dark now, actually. I live in the Brecon Beacons, which is incredibly beautiful and miles away from anywhere. It takes at least an hour, apart from to go to Llandovery, it takes at least an hour to get anywhere, but I love it.
And what would you like to speak? What would you like to share this evening?
Well, I'd actually like to talk about two things if I've got time. One, of course, is my plant a tree for Granny. You can do two grannies actually with the same tree, or you can plant two trees, because the Queen is also asking people to plant trees to create a canopy around the world, which I think is beautiful. And all of your trees that come to me will also be put on there, because as it happens, the Prince of Wales has got a house in Mudby. It's not been down ever since lockdown, but I will be sending him all of the trees. And Moses in Uganda is creating an ebook of the trees that you send. And Jane, I'm really pleased with you for saying that you will plant a tree. And I need a comment from you about what you think about global warming. And then this ebook will go initially to the COP26, that's the UN climate conference in Glasgow in November. And I shall ask all of them to plant trees too. Trees aren't the answer to global warming, but they are something we can do. And very often we need to show governments that we want them to get their finger out, because none of them have kept to their commitments that they made at the last climate conference. I know they've had the excuse of COVID, but if you think about it, COVID is nothing to the devastation that will be caused if we do have the sea levels rise. And now scientists are predicting rises of 5 to 6 meters. That means that virtually all our coastal towns and cities and people who live on the coast won't be able to live there anymore. Sandbanks, one of the most expensive properties in the world, will be lost completely. You know? So it is important that we do our little bit. A little bit won't be enough, but it's something we can do. Even a pot of herbs on your windowsill will be better than nothing at all. Because they all add oxygen to the air, and they all will do a tiny bit. Sorry, Phil. Nick, you wanted to say something?
I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, good. It's nice when that happens.
And that was a long title of your talk.
Sorry, I didn't know it was the title. Never mind, Dave.
That's all right. It's random. That's the whole thing. So, Nick, did you want to share what your title of your talk? And you can fire away if you want to as well. Or just share what you're going to talk about.
Well, I want to talk about education, but from a different, unusual perspective.
Okay.
My thesis is that education for a long time has been fundamentally upside down. That education has been about trying to turn young children into adults, and in the world that we have, which is volatile and uncertain and complex, ambiguous, changing all the time, what we actually need is the opposite. We actually need more adults to be able to have the skills which tiny children have, and for tiny children to be treated in a way which means they don't lose that ability to learn, which is actually innate. So yeah, it's turning education upside down, which I think came out of a conversation with you. I was throwaway line from me, but I thought, yeah, I've got a few things to say, and I've discovered some really quite promising things that are already happening for this day,
Great.
which I think is always nice to hear about things that are already happening, because it can be a bit of a surprise.
Actually, the other thing I want to talk about is intergenerational learning. So we're on the same page there, Nick.
There you go then.
Yes.
So,
What is
Intergenerational learning. I was 50 when Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, and I use it, and it is the most wonderful, amazing library that we have got at our fingertips. We can find out anything that you want to find out by going onto Google. That's wonderful. But most older people still don't use the technology that we've got. But the youngsters grew up with it. It isn't new to them.
Yeah.
it is their language.
Yes, it is. But every generation is the same. I mean, my gran wouldn't have electricity put upstairs in her cottage because she thought it was too dangerous. She went to bed with a candle in a thatched cottage. Precisely. My mum never learnt to drive a car. She became a very good backseat driver, but she never learnt to drive a car. Each generation has new inventions, and some people cotton on quickly and help the inventions develop, and others are quite happy in their little world as it is and don't want to catch up.
Hmm.
We have to let them be. Work on the ones that want to catch up.
And both of you, over the past kind of month or so, I've done videos on the YouTube channel with longer discussions around these topics as well. And so if you go onto the Jane Tyson YouTube channel, I'll put them in the links afterwards as well in the comments. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I'll put the comments in so you can watch both Valerie and Nick with their messages, you know, with a longer message and their links, etc. as well, so you can find out more about who they are and invite them on to your radio shows and TV shows to talk and share their messages. So this event happens monthly. This is a random dialogue stand up and speak yourself event. It happens monthly, up to 6 speakers sharing a message each, usually up to 6 minutes, and then time for Q&A. Now, this evening, we were going to have 5 speakers, and then we've now got 4. So it all works out in its own random way anyway. And the whole point is it's about random dialogues. And also enabling people to get clearer on their message and sharing with each other, not only here in the stream, but also with others who watch and I'd like to connect afterwards. You might go, oh, actually, I really like to hear more about what they're saying and get involved. Or you might think, actually, I'd really like to come and speak on here because I've got a message I want to shout out about as well. I feel like I'm a bit echoey.
No, you're fine.
No, I'm echoing back at myself a little bit. And I was going to talk this evening.
Good.
About.
Actually, you have got a bit of an echo. Okay?
Yeah. I might mute myself in a minute. I was just going to talk a little bit about my wildlife award that I got last night for my garden. Granny will be pleased. Phil, do you want to talk about your golf?
Yes. I'm afraid I'm feeling a little bit
Mute.
inferior to my fellow speakers in that my talk might appear to be somewhat flippant or not as serious as some of these other things. I usually talk about serious things, but I thought, well, randomly, I won't tonight. So what I'm going to talk about is things you might think you know about golf, but aren't actually true. So I'm mission's too strong a word, but what I'd like to do is to invite people to maybe give up their possible preconceptions about golf. So, for instance, I had an illness and I was in hospital, and I'd been laid up for quite some time. I was very unfit, and the doctor asked me if I did any regular exercise. And I said yes, I play golf, and he kind of sniffed derisively and said that that wasn't proper exercise. So I said, well, 12,000 steps 2 or 3 times a week, plus swinging a club approximately 95 times each round, doesn't count then. Plus, I play on a particularly hilly course. And he sort of looked at me and I said, have you ever played golf? He said, well, no. So it was kind of, he had this preconceived idea, and he's a doctor. So you do get good exercise from golf. The best evidence, I've looked this up, taken from a Swedish study and others, shows that playing golf may indeed lead to increased life expectancy, with golfers living over 5 years longer than non-golfers. This link was observed by comparing 300,000 golfers to non-golfers, and was found to exist regardless of age, gender, or socio-economic status. So it can be good for longevity. Another preconceived idea is that it's only for rich people. Well, actually, it costs no more than any other sport, such as tennis, cycling, sports club membership plus equipment is roughly the same. I mean, how much does a decent bicycle cost now? Several £1,000s. So yes, there's an outlay, but it's no more than most other sports where you have to have equipment. Another preconceived idea is that it's only for business people. Well, at my club, the members are mainly tradespeople, builders, plumbers, electricians, plus a smattering of professionals, teachers. So you get a complete mix right across the sort of socio-economic spectrum at a lot of clubs. Yes, there are clubs that are kind of very expensive, but that's only a few of them. There's a certain amount of wisdom can be gained from golf. I'll give an example. I took my grandson on to a par 3 golf course just to get him started, and he bowled really well right from the beginning. Clearly that's in the genes. But then he duffed a shot, and was straight away got really quite angry with himself. And of course he duffed the next shot because he was angry with himself. And he got even more angry. So I said, okay, you're about to learn a nugget of golf wisdom. When you duff a shot, you need to do nothing other than learn from it. Learn from the mistake you made. If you allow yourself to carry any negative thoughts forward to your next shot, you're almost guaranteed to duff that one too. Well, of course, that's a lesson for life, isn't it? We do something, we get it wrong. If we go into one about it, it doesn't serve us at all. But if we think about what we've done and analyse it and see where we went wrong, we can then move on and learn from the mistake. Now, some people look at people like Donald Trump and say, oh, well, there are people in golf that cheat. Well, as in life, cheating at golf is cheating yourself. And golf cheats are instantly recognised as such by other players, and they don't last in the golf world and don't tend to succeed in life either. Integrity and honesty are rife in the world of golf. So if you want to mix with a whole lot of people that are bursting with integrity and honesty, join a golf club. Donald Trump is the most famous golf cheat, but the only way he can get a game is by owning his own golf courses. Another aspect of golf is lots of people think that loads of business deals are done on the golf course. Well, no, actually, but a lot of networking takes place in the sense that people get to know each other well over time, and they make friends, and happen to have, if they happen to have something related to business in common, then the trust they develop on the course might lead to some business off the course. It might not, but that's similar to most forms of networking, whether it's social networking or business networking. So golf reflects much in life, including prejudices. So I invite you to set aside any preconceived ideas or prejudices you might have about or against golf, and check out a few courses near you. One tip I can give you, because you'll find that golfers are really, really good at giving tips for improving your game. But I will give one tip, and that is before you try to swing a golf club, have a lesson. With the basics, you won't get, without the basics, you won't get anywhere. It's a bit like learning to drive a car. After you've grasped the fundamentals, there's no limit to how far you can go.
Actually, can I say something, Phil? You're absolutely right. People who stay active mentally and physically are more likely to live longer and have more fun. The people who do serious sport actually are the ones who are likely to get injury. And more gentle sport, like golf, is very good. My sport is dancing. I barely go a day without having a bop about. I went to a folk club on Monday night, the first time we had an open folk meeting, and of course I had a bop. And you know, I don't keep the remote here by me. It's over by the television, so that I have to get up to change the channels. I'm nearly 80. Well, no, sorry, I'm past it. I am 80. I was 80 on the 4th of July. And I think that I may get tired more quickly than I did when I was 30, but I haven't really changed in my personality and in my outlook and in my thinking, and even in the amount of things I get done. So I would agree with you totally. Do good, regular, gentle exercise. And I still touch my toes every morning 10 times.
Very good. I went to a birthday party at the golf club last week, and we were celebrating Barry Fox's 90th birthday, and he was surprised with the cake as he came off the course, because he'd just done 18 holes of golf on this extremely hilly golf course.
Yeah.
Age 90.
Note this, young Jane.
Well, I do play a little golf, but also I think an umbrella for what everything I do is, I call it the Resilience Academy. And for me, resilience, the top of my Resilience Academy for everything I'm doing, the speaking events, the kids, is connectivity and community. And again, if you're going to a golf club isn't just about playing the golf, like you said, it's about the friendships and you're being in action and you're still with each other. And it that to me is, if we're all involved with little things, dancing. I went swimming to the Lido this morning. There's all sorts of, it's about it's a feeling of belonging, isn't it?
There's
I think
a very
as well.
strong community spirit at the golf club.
Yeah.
Of course, there are people who get more involved than others in that. But that's the same in all walks of life, isn't it? You get the people who get involved and help out, and others that don't.
There is a connection between living long life and happy life and community. There was a TV program about various hotspots of good aging, if you like. I mean, one is in Okinawa in Japan.
Yeah.
Another one is in Sardinia. Another one is the Fifth-day Adventist church in somewhere just outside Los Angeles, I think, strangely. And in all these places, there is a strong sense of community. But there are other things they do as well, which are equally interesting. Like in Okinawa, the tradition is that you finish a meal before you're full. So I mean, and actually, if you give rats less, the rats that you actually give a minimal calories to actually live longer than rats that you give as much as they want to eat.
It's a fixed base point or something.
Yeah, which is sort of interesting. Yeah, but I mean, these people look happy as well. They grow their own veg, and they have, they do loads of activities together. And you have centenarians and people in their late 90s just enjoying life, which is great.
I think it's also attitude.
Yeah.
If you're a naturally happy person, when one of my grandsons was very small, I was showing him a rainbow, and a lady walking by under her umbrella said, "I saw the rain, you saw the rainbow." And that has actually become a philosophy of my life. I prefer to see the rainbow.
Yeah. Yeah. Try this little exercise, Valerie. You might like it. Next time you have a little group of friends round, ask them to tell each of you tell a story about a time when you were happy, and then tell a story about a time when you made somebody else happy.
Looking forward to the time when I can have friends round again. Unfortunately, COVID is rising again, and I don't want to get it.
Yeah, well, you can do this online if you want to.
We can facilitate it here. We can do it here.
Yes.
Invite your friends to a live stream, or not. We don't have to go live with it.
Well, the folk thing I went to on Monday night had been online, and that was the first time I'd met any of them, because
Wow.
I actually lived too far away from them. But I thought, well, I would go down. It was a lovely day, and I went down to Buryport, and I took a picnic, and I sat by the harbour, and it was lovely. And then I went to the folk night, and I was pretty tired when I got home, but I'd had a good day.
Right.
That's a wonderful thing to do, Nick. I watched your talk that you did with the interview that you did with Jane the other day, and it reminded me. I started back in 1998. I started what became a charity called Imaginations United. That's actually 3 words: Imaginations United.
Yeah.
But if you say it quickly, it's Imaginations United.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we did, we wanted to break down barriers between people, and we started groups, and we did a lot of experimenting, and we started groups called PIPER groups. That's PIPER, Peace in People, Education and Research. And one of the things that we did, it just took a long time to arrive at something that was very simple. We were able to have it so that people from completely disparate backgrounds, social and economic and racial backgrounds, and people brought all their prejudices with them to the table, and we were able to, within 2 hours, have these people be profoundly related to each other as human beings. And the way we did it was to have them, each in turn, talk about their childhoods before age 7. And they didn't matter where they were from, where in the world. They all had found these common denominators. I suppose, just to sum it up, you could say that all children love to splash in puddles.
Yes.
My daughter-in-law was.
We went round the room again. It was a maximum of 8 people we found was the optimum. They went round again and talked about what they understood their parents' childhoods were like, and to see if they could find anything, remember things their parents had told them about their childhood. And again, it was the same thing. And after I think 2 hours to go through it, and it was remarkable, because they realised very quickly that everything else is just sort of onion layers of ideas that have been foisted on them, and prejudices occur. But once they got to that essential core of the humanity of childhood, everything else washed away.
My daughter-in-law was rather cross with me for teaching two of my eldest 2 grandchildren to jump in puddles. And it's the one thing that Emma wrote when I said, write a sentence about what's your grandma like to you? And she wrote, Grandma gave me ice cream before dinner and taught me to jump in puddles.
What a nice grandma you are.
Sorry?
What a nice grandma you are.
I don't see much of them now. They're all grown up and have children of their own. I've got 7 great-grandchildren now.
Wow.
And this is maybe a nice segue to Nick to talk about, is education upside down, and the link with the children. Would you like to do that now?
Yes, I would. And
I'm going to put you into. I'm going to ask everyone else just to go on to mute, actually, because there's a bit of background noise going on. So, and I'm going to put you into solo layout just for a little bit, if that's all right, so you can have the centre stage as well.
Can you put us into mute? Because I can't see how to do it here.
I will.
Okay, shall I? Oh, right, that's me. Yeah. Well, I'll try to keep this down to the 6 minutes, which will be, I suspect, tough, but I'll do my best. Well, one way of describing the world that we have at the moment is the acronym VUCA, VUCA, which stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. What it basically means, it's chaotic and it's unpredictable. And so we need people who can respond creatively to a world which is changing rapidly, and come up with creative solutions, be very adaptive. When things are changing, you have to learn incredibly fast. Even if you look back over the last 20 years or so, many of the jobs that people do now didn't even exist 20 years ago. And the other thing people need to be able to, we have to work together. There are complex things which affect where there are lots of different people with different viewpoints who actually have to work together. So and for that you need good communication skills, and you need trust. Now, when I think about who are the people on the planet who have these things and can do these things easily, like they connect very easily, they're highly creative, they're extraordinarily adaptable, they love to learn, and they communicate clearly and directly, so you know exactly what you want, exactly what they want and what they're feeling. Then the people I think about are infants, and also have the are extraordinarily attractive, so that a tiny child that was feeling really good about herself could walk into the most contentious meeting there's ever been in the UN, and she'd just wander in and everybody would just stop dead because they just fall in love with her. You can't help it. That's what young people are like, and that's the way we feel about them. So it's very sad and strange that a lot of young people, unless they've been hurt in the womb, or their mother or father have gone through, mother in particular has gone through an absolutely terrible time in pregnancy. When we arrive, we have these natural qualities, and you've only got to look at a tiny child to see them everywhere. But you don't see many adults behaving in this open, experimental, joyous, creative, inventive, connected sort of way. And you don't, many adults sort of reject or really find learning very, very difficult, and some actually reject learning at age 12 because the learning experience they have at school is so terrible. So, it doesn't work. Sorry, what I don't know, not it doesn't work, but that we don't see many people who hold on to these natural qualities that children have, which we so desperately need. So something happens which gets in the way, and one thing that gets in the way is that as we go through life, we get hurt. When you get hurt, you don't think straight. And then when you get in a situation which reminds you of when you got hurt, you don't think straight again, and you may do stupid things. And that can block your ability to think clearly. And this can happen even in situations where you're supposed to learn. And the way learning is structured at the moment in the majority of schools, in the majority of places in the world, it's about getting knowledge, usually knowledge and some skills, from the adults into the children, and actually in a way turning the children into mini adults, often adults that will fit into the dominant economic model which exists at the time, which of course is not going to be the model that will exist in 20 years' time when they get into work. And young people are encouraged, in our system at least, to pass exams, and the exams say there is one answer, or there's one sort of answer, and this is the way you actually pass it. So you're not encouraged people aren't encouraged to think originally. If you think originally, you don't do well at school. You do rather badly. You're considered to be a pain in the neck. So school's upside down. Now there are, luckily, so what we actually need is schools in which children can hang on to their innate ability to learn, and go on learning rapidly. And maybe even schools in which adults can actually recover their ability to learn as fast as littlies do. Now, some such schools do exist, at least in the first category. There's a series of schools. The best one that I know of is called Sudbury Valley, and it's in the US. This has been going for 50 years or so. It's incredibly successful, and it is rather different from most schools in England and anywhere else in the world. It has no curriculum, and there are no exams. Children's learning is entirely driven by their own curiosity. No child will ever be told at age 6 or 8, isn't it about time you learned how to read? Children decide to read when they want to. A child who decides that they want to read at, say, age 8, in 3 months will be reading for pleasure and delight and enjoying it. Whereas if you push children to learn to read in a specific way when they don't want to, then you get resistance, And you even get dyslexia. They've not had a single case of dyslexia in this school in 50 years. And the young people, because they've been lifelong learners, come out being flexible, being able to cope with life changes. And most of them go to the colleges of their first choice. And you may say, well, that's idiotic. How could somebody go to a college of their first choice if they, if they haven't got any exams? But the fact is, if a child, for instance, takes an interest in art and there's no curriculum, so the child can actually study art 4 hours a day for 10 years, because they're passionate about it, they're going to be pretty jolly good at the end of it. And any university worth its or college that wants a student is going to say, please, when can you join us? And that's what they do. Now, and it's a democratic school as well. All decisions are made on the basis of one person, one vote, and that includes the children. And justice is done democratically as well, because there's only really one rule, which is what you do mustn't stop other people from learning. So it's fascinating. The book I've read about it is turned everything I ever thought about education upside down. And there is another school called the Kin School in Russia, where the children write the textbooks. It's also child-centered, and they cover the entire university curriculum in many subjects by the time they're 15. And there's more and more of these. But I'm really interested in saying, how could we have some system where adults can actually learn to recover their ability to learn just like children? Maybe to have more play, more encouragement, being silly, trying stuff, having an adventure. I just think it would be amazing, and maybe we'd recover some ability to have things better. Now, there's much more. I'm sure I've gone on for more than 6 minutes, so I should shut up. Thank you. That's it.
Unmute. Let me just unmute everybody. There, everyone's unmuted. Could you cut open yours? We could be silly and play. That's for sure. So I made that banner. Thank you, Nick.
I think getting old is a bloody good idea. It certainly beats the alternative. But no one said I had to grow up.
I'm really glad you haven't, and I hope you never do.
I don't intend to.
Oh, I agree with you. It really is bad news.
I think I might start by sitting on the floor more.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I think I might start by sitting on the floor more.
Oh, being a child.
Because that's one of the things that children do, is they sit on the floor.
Yes. I think the thing you could do next time you have an opportunity to actually meet face to face is to say to somebody, well, would you like to come round and play?
Oh yeah, I always do that.
Why not?
And splash in puddles.
Yes, why not? I just think we could.
I still splash in puddles.
Me too.
And kick the leaves up.
So do I. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I once did a workshop with a lady called Jane, who said we were on this sort of event where you could run your own workshops, and Jane said, I said, shall we do something together? And she said, yeah, I don't really mind what it is as long as it's silly. So we actually ran a silly workshop, and I think we had about 6 people in the workshop, and they were all sort of in the training and development field. And we asked people, think of an exercise that lasts no more than 10 minutes, which you think is too silly to get away with at work. And then we'll do it and see what happens. And it was amazing. People really did shift their own internal barriers. One I can remember very vividly was an exercise on communication, and I think what happened is there were two tables, and there were three people sitting on the floor. There were two people sitting on the tables, and there was a chair on the table, and there was one person sitting on the chair on the table. The person sitting on the chair and the table was the manager. The two people were the middle managers, and the people in the floor were the workers. The task of the workers was to make paper planes, but the only way you could communicate was by note. Now, if you think about it, it's much easier to drop notes down than it is to pass notes up. It's exactly a simulation of what happens in organizations. And the feelings that people arose in 10 minutes were incredibly real, and it was just very, very vivid. This must have happened 30 years or more ago, and I can remember it just like it was yesterday. So that's play.
I ran a workshop once. Yeah, I ran a couple of workshops called a play. I think it was place to be. It was like play, place, and then to be. And I ran it in a natural burial ground. in a pavilion. Anyways, thank you, Nick. So is it all right if I'll do my little talk, share about my award winning thing last night, and then Val will close, with your intergenerational learning, if you want intergenerational learning moments. Okay, so I'll put myself onto solo, and if everyone's all right to mute so there's not background noise, I won't speak for long, but I thought it'd be interesting to speak about, perhaps. So last night we went along to the award ceremony at Guildford in Bloom, and Guildford in Bloom has been now going for 40 years. I'm echoing, I'm not sure why, I hope I'm not echoing for everyone. And their aim is to encourage... Oh, hang on, I have... There, now you... Maybe there's no echo now. So the aim of Guildford in Bloom is to encourage good horticultural practice, sustainability, and encourage more wildlife. And it's for all the community, including businesses and residents. So my teenagers sort of asked me why are you entering the garden into the wildlife in, the Guildford in Bloom Awards, and there's nothing so special about it. And I thought, well, no, there isn't. It is not particularly special for us, but it's special for the wildlife. And we're always planting with wildlife in mind. We're planting with native trees, native plants, flowers. I kept the grass long. And I was just focusing, as usual, on what I could do in a simple way. And also by just entering us into the awards, to focus on it more and to actually think, I'm going to be in the award office. So what, it kept it fresh in my mind. And the more people that go to the Guildford in Bloom, the more people that are obviously encouraging, all of the sustainability and encouraging wildlife. So it was my way of just doing something and encouraging others. Today I was at my stepmom's, and I encouraged on her verbena. I saw on her verbena bonarensis a butterfly, and I love verbena bonarensis because I love the word verbena bonarensis. And I don't know if you know what it is. It's like a structurally quite interesting, tall, bushy plant, slim stems, and it's got beautiful purple on the end of it, which is nice for cut flowers as well. But butterflies absolutely love it. And I was first introduced to verbena bonarensis on a gardening course, a design course at Merist Wood, about 20 years ago. And I soon learned that I'm not terribly good at design, but I just really enjoyed the planting side of things, and then designed a wildlife friendly garden in my home in Woking, which I never entered for any awards. But it just sort of set me off in that path. And we also had an allotment in Woking, which we still do. And it's a little bit of a distance to travel to now, but my husband still really enjoys going there. It's his place for his well-being and mental health. And I do go there, but not as frequently. Because in my wildlife garden, I've also got some raised beds and, have grown my vegetables outside too. A couple of years ago, my father passed away. And one of the things I did during this kind of quite challenging time was to also take on another allotment in Guildford. And it was because I wanted to walk somewhere, and I needed just somewhere to just go to, just to have some respite from the hospital visits and the feelings all around it. And I went to the community garden. I've spoken about this on here before, but if you're wanting to take on an allotment and it seems a bit overwhelming and it's a bit big to do, you can actually go to your local allotments, and they've often got community spots where you can get involved with small pieces, small beds, or there's always someone there who would welcome a helping hand, maybe someone who's got a little bit older or someone who's sort of like physically finding it difficult. So it's just a great place to go, and again, that kind of sense of community and connection. So whilst this was all happening with my dad, I went there and I planted on the day of his, the day after his funeral. My sister came with me and we planted some courgettes and purple TP dwarf beans, and it was just lovely to see them grow. And from the grief came the growth. Nature always knows these things, and I didn't need it forever. But last night at the awards, there they were, the Guildford, the Burpham Community Association, Allotment Association, and it was lovely to see them all. They had a stand there, and they had big winners, like the overall winners, who had created an allotment garden based on the 40th theme for Guildford in Bloom. So it was lovely to see them. What else did I want to say? But overall, at the awards last night was the Aspen Close Woodland community group, which won, and they had 17 people on their close. And during lockdown, they'd got creative and played, and they got together and they improved their local woodland, and they planted more trees. Valerie, please. They planted more trees, they planted more bulbs, they planted more flowers, and there they were last night collecting the award. And it was quite emotional, seeing that last night. Now we won, we won a silver gilt award for our wildlife garden. 2 years ago, I'd won the silver award, and I like to think of the guilt in this as the I'm guilty yet of not having a pond, because we haven't yet done a pond. We had the year of the shed this year, so next year we're going to put a pond in the garden. We've got a pond at the allotment. Over the last sort of 100 years, 70% of ponds pond life has declined due to urbanization, etc. And I go into schools, I see schools and I see their ponds, and they're pretty neglected. It's quite sad. And actually, again, there's so much learning around pond life and pond dipping, and it's like so much focus is being spent on the curriculum and other areas and writing, and though it's on their doorstep, it's outside the windows what's important. So yes, the silver gilt is my way of sort of reminding myself that yes, it's nice to get that, but actually to have ponding. So I'd like to say, plant a tree for Granny tonight and dig a pond for Jane. So that's my talk over with, really. I'm going to remove myself from the solo screen and unmute everybody. Thank you for listening.
Well, before I talk about intergenerational learning, I just want to pick you up on that, Jane, because will you speak to the woodland winners and get them to take a photograph and their climate change comment and send that to me to go into the ebook, because community things are also terribly important, and of course your own. Still on that theme for the moment, it is actually part of this whole thing of how we live our lives. You mentioned about the vegetables that you grow. At this time of the year, I am totally self-sufficient on vegetables. I don't have a lot of strength for gardening, but I do no-dig gardening, and it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Charles Dowding is the guy, and I can send you a YouTube clip that you can see how to do no-dig gardening. I like going out and watering the plants and picking them, eating them. The peas don't make it to the kitchen. I usually eat those en route. It's part of this feeling that we are actually part of this planet. And that's really what the Plant a Tree for Granny is about. It's about giving something back, because we have been taking and taking and taking from this planet at too great a rate. We fell, I think it's 15 billion trees a year, and we plant nearly 2 billion trees a year. Well, I'm not good at maths, but that don't add up. We need a lot more trees to be planted because we need air to breathe. The trees take in the carbon dioxide and they give us oxygen. So yes, please, Jane is right. Plant a tree for Granny and let's help. All of us can help make this world a little bit more beautiful. And it also is something you can do intergenerationally. I read a young man who wrote on Facebook and said, I've got 3 degrees and I didn't have any life skills at all. He went to his granny to get her to teach him how to cook. His granny also showed him how to lay a fire. A couple of weeks ago, a young man, I was talking about intergenerational learning, and he laughed and said, I'll give you a good one about intergenerational learning. His little son said, Dad, I've got a puncture. And he said, I'll fix it at the weekend. And he said, no, it's okay. Gramps is going to do it with me, and he's going to show me how to do it. The same day, Gramps said to his son, I want to tax the car online. I haven't done it before, so can you show me how to do it? Now, both of those are simple life skills, but they're only simple when you know how to do it. And this is how we can bring the generations together. As Nick was saying earlier, children have an innate curiosity, and so do we. We don't have to give up being curious. I saw something today about eating a rainbow, eating different colors is actually good for your cognitive mental health. And I thought, I didn't know that. So I Googled it. And it's true. This is what scientists say, that the more color you can get into the diet, the better the diet is for longevity as well as cognitive. I can't say that word. You know what I mean. So looking at the different levels that we are at, as I said earlier, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web when I was 50. And my son said to me, Mum, you're going to have email. And I said, why? I don't need email. I can write a letter. And he said, Mum, it's free. And a letter gets there like that. I thought, that's handy. My brother used to live in what was then Rhodesia, and a letter took 6 to 7 weeks to arrive. Now we can speak to, well, he doesn't live in Rhodesia anymore, he lives in Australia, which is even further away, but now we can actually talk to one another via Zoom. You see, we can use this technology to bring the generations and people together. In 2019, I spoke at 6 conferences, and I loved them all. I had such fun. I went all over Europe, from Poland to Moldova, speaking at conferences. And they were great. And because I'm retired, I could take an extra few days to see the place and so on and so forth. But they cost money. I was in a Zoom here in my cottage. I spoke at a conference in America. I'd also been invited the same day to take part in a project in Poland. So I spoke first in America, then I whizzed over to Poland and took part in the competition, which we won. And then I went back to America for question time. That is amazing. One couldn't do that physically. Quite apart from the time, the cost, and so on, it would be impossible. So let's use this technology that we've got. I just think sometimes no one's going to shut me up because I've got the internet. We can now all say what we think is a good idea. And not everybody will take it up. With Learn with Grandma, which is now incidentally a network which is around the world, there are Learn with Grandma groups from Wales, from Ukraine, from South Africa, from Canada to Australia. It is pretty global. And we can connect with all of those people in a very easy way. So by using the technology, we can also connect with different age groups. I wrote an article for UNESCO Mobile Learning Week, which was about mother language. They have a day every year, which is Mother Language Day. And I thought, Nick, you would be interested in this. We have so many languages around the world, and we're losing languages at a rate of knots because most people want to learn the major languages. But we can use the local languages to help teach the international languages. I live in Wales, which has its own language, and I worked with a local school, and we started creating an ebook about our local legend up the mountain, the Lady of the Lake. Unfortunately, COVID came before it got finished, so I'm hoping it will one day get finished. But we're now able to do this by older people can bring more traditional skills to the table. The ability to write well, the ability to do paintings, take photographs. Those are the more traditional skills that happen in any book that was ever printed around the world. And then the younger people can get involved and create the program to put it online. And the two beautiful things about ebooks is, first of all, if you've got a printed book, it costs more money, it uses more trees, it costs money to distribute. It is actually quite extravagant. But with an ebook, and it's there, just like that, it costs nothing to send. When I first started talking about this project, it cost about £2,000 to get an expert to create the ebook. But I wanted it to be free. I wanted it so that any teacher in any country, even the poorer countries like Malawi and so on, can use this technology, because Moses in Uganda has developed a new program which enables us to do it absolutely at zero cost. So all the legends, all the stories, all the languages can be written in their native language, translated into English or German or French. The idea is dual language books that can teach both the native language together with the more international languages. I wasn't able to start it when I wanted to. It was quite funny, actually. I was in Paris for another conference, and I was walking along the street, and I thought, UNESCO would like this. But I actually said it out loud, and a lady walking in the opposite direction said, "But you are there. It is just down the road, 10 minutes." So I walked into UNESCO, and the receptionist said, "Who have you come to see?" And I said, "Someone in IT, in the education department." "Oh, you don't have an appointment?" "No." So she sat me down by a telephone, and eventually the phone rang, and a very cultured voice said, "Can I help you?" And I gave him a quick flash of the idea. And he said, "This is interesting. Can you send me an email?" And I said, "Yes, of course I can send you an email. But the thing is, I'm downstairs and I live in Wales." And he said, "Well, you better come upstairs." So I got to meet the head of IT in the education department in UNESCO. And then I was invited to speak in UNESCO, and I've spoken in UNESCO 3 times now. We can use this technology in a way that isn't scary. We can use it to have fun. We can use it to play. It isn't all serious stuff, and we can leave a legacy. As I'm getting on a bit, I quite want to leave a legacy.
Thank you, Val.
So,
Yeah.
Nick, do you think this would fit in with what you're doing?
I'm sorry, who are you talking to?
You're called Nick.
Sorry, I didn't hear the Nick bit. Yes, I mean, intergenerational learning is part of the or into age mixing is a critical bit of Sudbury Valley, because they don't have classes unless a group of children say they want a class, in which case they can ask for one, but they don't have classes. So in fact, there are lovely stories about a 6-year-old teaching a 16-year-old something, because sometimes 6-year-olds are better at doing things than 16-year-olds.
Yes.
But this all happens spontaneously. He said it's all driven by children's natural curiosity. And there's some really truly fascinating stuff. Like one of the things there is on the campus is there are some quite big rocks, and when people who don't understand children would say, well, if there are big rocks, obviously the children will climb up in the easiest possible way. They don't. Children choose the difficult ways to go up because they're more interesting and more exciting.
Yes.
So,
Right.
I think
Everyone, I'm just going to say, sorry, it's now 9 o'clock, so I'm quite strict with the 8 to 9. Otherwise,
yeah, of course.
yeah, and I was going to say, if people I'll end this now, but we can carry on chatting in the studio. But if you watched to the end, or you've been here, thank you for viewing, thank you for tuning in, and if you like what you've seen and you want to kind of join the conversations, join the crew, come along to the Facebook group and hop in. And maybe this month I'll host another, not a live one, but just a gathering online where we can just continue the conversations and come and join us. So thank you, and we'll maybe give a wave and say goodbye. And you can find Random Dialogues with #Random Dialogues on social.